Love goes away. Obsession stays. She can forget every man who made her happy, but she never forgets the one who made her lose control. Because obsession doesn't come from happiness. It comes from confusion, from the break between what she feels and what she can't understand. It's when her brain stops working because of your silence. She tells herself she's free, that she doesn't need you, that what you had was just luck or good timing. But the body never lies. The body remembers the man who made it give in without asking. She might erase your messages, block your number, and throw away everything that reminds her of you. But her nervous system keeps its own memories. Every breath, every pause, every time you pulled away is saved in her body. That's why she still dreams about you when she hates you most. That's why your name still pops into her head when she's with someone else. Love is soft. Obsession is like building a house. It builds rooms inside her, invisible rooms where only your shadow fits. She doesn't choose to visit them. She's pulled there again and again by something stronger than willpower. And here is the first hard truth: women are not obsessed with perfection. They are obsessed with confusion. The man who makes her comfortable disappears from memory. The man who shakes her balance cuts himself into her identity. Because what she wants is not safety, it's friction. A crash between liking you and fearing you, between wanting you and not understanding why. You become the puzzle she can't solve. And the human mind always goes back to what it cannot solve. That's why attraction goes away, but obsession stays. Attraction is curiosity. Obsession is worship mixed with sadness. It's not about love. It's about giving in when she never agreed to. When she met you, something old woke up inside her, a knowing of who's stronger that she doesn't want to admit. Your presence messed with her sense of control, and part of her hated that. But the rest of her needed it. You didn't chase her. You didn't beg for her to like you. You simply existed with an energy that didn't need approval. That silence, that unmovable calm, it mirrored her chaos, and her chaos bowed down. She might call it tricks. She might call you distant, cold, or detached. But what she's really saying is, you didn't break when I tested you. And that, more than charm or looks, is what creates obsession. Because a woman's mind doesn't fall for words. It falls for structure. Every emotion she feels needs something to spin around. Most men fall apart when she tests them. Their emotions scatter. But the rare man, the one who stands still, unmoved, solid, becomes the center her storms spin around. That's the man she cannot forget. Not because he gave her pleasure, but because he gave her contrast. In him, she met both the tension and the relief, the danger and the calm. You see, desire was never about affection. It was always about imbalance. When she senses a man who has control of his own emotions, her subconscious feels small. And that smallness creates fascination. She wants to understand him. She wants to decode him. But every try only makes the mystery deeper. And mystery is the root of all obsession. She might tell her friends, he's selfish, arrogant, emotionally unavailable. But even in that judgment, she's speaking your name, because judgment is attention, and attention is energy, and energy always flows back to where it came from. So understand this, her obsession is not proof of your charm. It's proof of your gravity. Every man gives off energy, but only a few create weight. Weight bends emotion. Weight warps memory. Weight makes her reality spin around you even after you're gone. And when you pull that weight away, when your attention becomes scarce, her biology panics. The mind tries to make sense of it, but the body remembers. She starts looking through old photos, rereading messages, inventing reasons to reach out. Not because she wants closure, but because she wants another hit of the chemical that once made her feel alive. This is why she can't replace you. It's not about your looks, your money, or your words. It's about the mark you left, the emotional equation you built inside her nervous system. It's addiction disguised as love. It's biology mistaking tension for attachment. And here's the question that should burn in your mind: how do you become that man? The one she can't erase from her system, the one who becomes the standard every other man fails to meet. That's the path this ritual will show. Because there exists a formula, forbidden not because it's evil, but because it exposes the hidden structure of female desire. It was known long before psychology had names for it. It was written into myths, religions, and seductions that shaped empires. It's the law that turns admiration into worship, and worship into addiction. Most men stumble upon pieces of it, a spark of mystery, a trace of control, a moment of silence that lasts too long. But they never understand how it works. They don't realize that what they call chemistry is actually psychological engineering. When you understand the forbidden formula, you stop chasing validation. You stop competing for affection. You become the environment her emotions depend on to survive. That's when attraction transforms. That's when desire becomes devotion. That's when her independence starts spinning around your calm. But be warned, this knowledge is not for comfort. It doesn't make you charming. It makes you sovereign. It demands control, restraint, and the cold precision of a man who understands the difference between power and need. In the chapters that follow, you will see the anatomy of obsession taken apart. How desire begins as imbalance. How it changes into craving. How it locks into the nervous system through repetition and scarcity. By the end, you will see why she forgets those who made her happy. And why she never forgets the one who made her tremble. The formula is ancient. The mechanism is invisible. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. Love goes away. Obsession doesn't. And when you learn how to become the reason for that truth, you'll understand what it means to be unforgettable. ## Part 1, The Nature of Desire. Desire isn't about love. It's about imbalance. Love wants peace. Desire feeds on tension. The moment peace enters, the spark dies. Every story of passion begins the same way, with a gap. A gap between what she wants and what she can't have, between the safety she says she needs and the danger she secretly wants. That gap is the spark. It's the imbalance that turns curiosity into hunger. When everything feels certain, her mind sleeps. When something feels unpredictable, her body wakes. You've been told women want comfort, consistency, and kindness. But comfort doesn't create chemistry. It numbs it. Consistency becomes invisible. And kindness without polarity feels like weakness. A woman's desire is not logical. It's gravitational. It moves toward the source that bends her emotions, not the one that cushions them. That's why the nice man becomes forgettable. He gives her peace without polarity. He removes the unknown, the tension, the risk. He fills the gap instead of widening it. And in doing so, he kills the voltage that makes her feel alive. Safety feels good, but it doesn't move her. It doesn't shake her nervous system enough to make her remember you in silence. To remember you when you're not there. Because desire isn't about who makes her smile. It's about who makes her heartbeat shift, who reminds her that she's still capable of losing control. The men she dreams about are not the ones who say the right things. They are the ones who carry silence like a weapon, who create space heavy enough for her mind to echo in. That space is where desire grows, not in comfort, but in confusion. When she looks at you and can't read you, when she senses warmth in your eyes but discipline in your energy, when she feels that strange mixture of attraction and danger, that's when her biology marks you as significant. Her emotions are chemical storms, and storms crave a center. If you become that center, the axis of calm inside her chaos, she will orbit you unconsciously. Most men think desire can be built with effort. But effort is noise. Real desire grows in silence, the kind that makes her nervous. When your energy doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't seek approval, you become unpredictable. And the unpredictable becomes addictive. That's the paradox. The more you try to make her happy, the less alive she feels around you. The more you hold your frame, the deeper she falls into emotional volatility. Because deep inside, she doesn't want to be adored. She wants to be moved. She wants the mirror of her own chaos, the confrontation with something stronger, more still, more certain, something she cannot sway. Every woman's nervous system recognizes this pattern: tension, relief, tension, relief. It's the biological dance of attraction. It mirrors how the body experiences pleasure, fear, and release. When you remove that rhythm, desire dies. So when you are always available, always predictable, you flatten the emotional landscape. You turn the dance into a routine. And the mind craves movement, not stability. That's why women often walk away from the man who treated them best. Not because he lacked value, but because he offered too much peace and too little polarity. You see, her emotional chemistry is addicted to contrast. She needs to feel both the warmth of your attention and the chill of your distance, both the safety of your presence and the fear of losing it. That tension is the invisible heartbeat of her desire. When you withdraw energy at the right moment, you reintroduce scarcity. And scarcity is gasoline for attraction. She starts to chase balance again. She wants to restore the emotional balance you disrupted. And that pursuit makes her investment grow. The more she invests, the deeper she binds herself to you. Because what the human mind invests energy into, it starts to value. She will rationalize her own obsession as love, not realizing it's simply the body chasing the imbalance that made her feel alive. The nice man confuses care with control. He thinks that giving more equals connection. But connection without tension breeds indifference. The man with gravity understands this. He doesn't give everything. He doesn't explain everything. He allows uncertainty to breathe between every interaction, because in that space, desire expands. When she senses your energy pulling back, her instincts interpret it as loss. Loss triggers craving. Craving creates fixation. Fixation becomes memory. That's how desire anchors. And here lies the cruel irony: she will tell herself she wants peace, but every part of her nervous system begs for the man who disturbs it just enough to feel alive again. To her, you start to represent something beyond affection. You become the emotional contrast she measures life by, the storm and the calm fused into one. That's the secret most men never see. They confuse her words for her truth. She says she wants communication, consistency, and kindness. But what she responds to biologically, emotionally, is polarity, mystery, and weight. You can be kind and still command respect. You can be gentle and still radiate danger. You can be calm and still make her pulse race, but only when that calm is rooted in power, not need. She doesn't want to be loved like a fragile flower. She wants to be seen through, stripped of her masks by a man whose gaze doesn't flinch, because that gaze tells her, you cannot shake me. You cannot define me. You can only feel me. That's the energy of gravity. The invisible force that keeps her anchored while she resists you. And the more she resists, the deeper she sinks. So understand this: desire is not a feeling. It's a reaction to imbalance. It's the body's recognition of hierarchy, polarity, and mystery. When you remove the imbalance, desire evaporates. When you maintain it with restraint, silence, and presence, it multiplies. You are not meant to be her peace. You are meant to be her pulse. Do not seek to make her happy. Happiness is momentary. But aliveness, that trembling in her chest when she's near you, that's eternal. Let her feel that she's walking on the edge of something sacred and dangerous. Let her sense that one wrong move could lose your attention forever. In that fragile uncertainty, obsession is born. She doesn't crave comfort. She craves motion. The invisible dance between surrender and control. When you become the axis of that dance, you become unforgettable. Don't aim to be her peace, be her storm center. The stillness she can't destroy, the silence she can't forget. Desire isn't about love. It's about imbalance. And once you learn to master that imbalance, you stop being an option and become her gravity. When she pushes and you do not move. When she provokes and you do not flinch. When she withdraws and you do not chase, something deep inside her collapses and bows. Not from fear, from recognition. Because in every woman's nervous system, there's a silent algorithm scanning for power. Not dominance through noise, but dominance through stillness. The man whose emotions do not wobble when hers become wild. That man speaks to her biology, to her animal self, to the part that's starving for containment. She will test you, always. Not because she hates you, but because she needs to know, can you hold me when I lose myself? So she plays with the edges of chaos. She ignores you when you're steady. She flares up when you're calm. She tries to bend your will, not to see you obey, but to feel the borders of your strength. Every word you don't defend. Every reaction you don't give. Every silence that doesn't beg, it all becomes a mirror showing her the limits of her reach. And the more she realizes she cannot move you, the more her mind begins to circle you. Confused, drawn, addicted. Her body registers your restraint as danger. Her psyche interprets it as value. And her emotions begin to orbit around you like a planet that's found gravity. Most men break here. They think her tests are insults. They argue. They prove. They explain. And in doing so, they step off their throne. But the man with sovereignty, the one who governs his own storm, he doesn't argue with the wind. He lets it blow. He watches. He remains. Because he knows storms end themselves when they meet a mountain. That's the essence of emotional sovereignty. You are the mountain, unmoved, unimpressed, unshaken. Not cold, just still. Because stillness is the loudest language power speaks. Her biology feels it before her mind understands it. A subtle contraction in her stomach, a strange pull in her chest. She wants to break your silence just to prove she still has influence. And when she fails, the switch inside her clicks. That click, that's not attraction. That's submission. Not the kind she performs, the kind her body cannot hide. Because every woman has a threshold, a point where her chaos meets something it cannot move. If you cross that threshold with calmness, you become the symbol of safety she didn't know she wanted. And from that moment, every emotional fluctuation she has returns to one question: what is he thinking? Why isn't he reacting? Why can't I affect him? The question becomes obsession. The obsession becomes attachment. And the attachment becomes a form of worship. This is the hidden switch, the invisible transfer of power. It doesn't happen through seduction. It happens through sovereignty. You see, a woman's attraction is not about charm. It's about containment. When you can contain her emotional storms without being swallowed by them, you awaken her primitive loyalty. It's not love yet. Love is too soft a word for what's forming here. This is imprint. The marking of her nervous system by the weight of your stillness. She starts to dream of you. Not your face, but your silence. Not your words, but the pause before you speak. Not your touch, but the space you leave between touches. Because in that space, her imagination builds temples. Her fear paints you as danger. Her longing paints you as home. Either way, you live in her body. Now, don't react. Reign. Not with arrogance, but with that sacred detachment that only men of depth carry. Detachment is not indifference. It's mastery of impulse. It's what separates kings from clowns. The clown seeks applause. The king seeks nothing. And that's why the crowd cannot stop watching him. When you can stand in silence while she storms, she starts to see you differently. You stop being a man. You become a mirror. Everything she hides from herself reflects back in your calm. She resists. She trembles. She feels naked without understanding why. And that's when her emotions begin to bind themselves to you. Not because you tried to control her, but because your lack of reaction revealed control she never had. This is the paradox that enslaves her. The more she tries to win over your attention, the more she loses her independence from it. The more she pushes, the more she collapses into your orbit. You are no longer a choice. You are an axis. When a woman feels that, truly feels it, she doesn't think. She obeys the gravity of her own biology. She may resist you in words, but her body will return. Her emotions will crawl back to the source of calm that makes her chaos make sense. She doesn't choose that. It happens to her. That's why she keeps testing. Every test is an attempt to feel the border of your strength again. Every provocation is a prayer in disguise. Please show me you're still the mountain. So when you feel tempted to explain, to argue, to prove, don't. Let silence do what noise never can. Because silence held with power is the sound of a man reigning. And when she feels that silence, not emptiness, but command, she surrenders. Not to you, to the peace that only exists in your presence. The hidden switch has turned. The chase has begun. Not yours, hers. And from this moment forward, every emotion she feels, every memory she touches, every man she meets will be measured against the weight of your stillness. Because once a woman tastes sovereignty, she can never be satisfied with softness. You are not her fantasy anymore. You are her reference point. Her biology wrote your name into her code. And from here, her desire is no longer a choice. It's a reflex, a gravitational pull she will mistake for destiny. She doesn't choose who she desires. Her biology does. And once that switch flips, you don't chase her heart. Her heart chases you. ## Part 2, The Hidden Switch. She doesn't choose who she desires. Her biology does. Desire is not born in thought. It awakens in the dark, before language, before reason. It's not a decision. It's a surrender written into her cells. When she meets a man she cannot move, something ancient stirs inside her. A memory older than civilization, older than words like love or relationship. The memory of hierarchy, of gravity, of surrender before power. You see, she's not drawn to the man who pleases her. She's drawn to the man who unsettles her. Because in that unsettling, she feels alive. Her heart stumbles. Her breath shortens. Her mind says no. But her body leans closer. That's the hidden switch. It flips when control begins to slip. She doesn't desire your comfort. She desires the moment she realizes she cannot control you. ## Part 3, The Power Imprint. She doesn't remember faces. She remembers feelings. Faces blur. Voices fade. Names vanish. But the feeling, the exact texture of a moment, remains carved in her nervous system like a scar made of electricity. That's what you leave behind. Not the memory of what you said, but the imprint of what she felt when you said nothing. Every man leaves a trace. Most traces wash away like chalk in the rain. Soft, shallow, forgettable. But once in a lifetime, she meets a man whose presence cuts deep enough to leave a mark. Not a bruise, not a wound, a signature. A signature written not on her heart, but on her biology. When a woman bonds to a man, she bonds through sensation, through contrast, through the collision of fear and relief, danger and safety, tension and release. It's that paradox, that sacred confusion, that seals the imprint. You create it not by force, but by evoking both her resistance and her surrender in the same breath. When she feels your strength challenge her and your restraint protect her, she experiences a paradox that the mind can't resolve. And what the mind can't resolve, it cannot forget. That is the power imprint. It's not built through gifts, compliments, or constant presence. Those are the currencies of men who want to be liked. But the imprint belongs to the man who makes her feel something she has never felt before, that rare combination of being overpowered and safe at the same time. When she's near you, her pulse betrays her. Her breath shortens. Her body prepares for surrender, even while her mind resists. That tension, that duality, becomes the chemical signature of you. And it doesn't fade with distance. It deepens with absence. Because the nervous system doesn't understand breakups. It only understands patterns. And when you've created a pattern of high intensity followed by silence, her brain loops endlessly, searching for completion. She tries to replace you with comfort, with noise, with another man's attention. But none of it fits the same shape, because you didn't just give her pleasure. You gave her contrast. And contrast is what the human psyche remembers forever. She might say she hates you. She might convince herself you were toxic, detached, cold. But hatred is a disguise for unresolved charge. Every time she thinks of you with anger, she reignites the very circuit you built. Every insult is an echo of fascination. Every denial is a form of remembering. She can only forget what she fully understands. She never understood you. That's why you stay. You became the unsolved equation in her emotional mathematics. The place where logic ends and instinct begins. You became the unanswered question. And questions haunt longer than love. When she lies in bed next to another man, she might feel warmth, affection, stability. But deep inside there's a silence that doesn't feel like peace. It feels like absence. The absence of voltage, the absence of that trembling between fear and safety. And in that silence, her mind travels backward. Back to the only time she felt both chaos and calm in the same breath. Back to you. That's the curse and the gift of the power imprint. You don't live in her thoughts. You live in her reactions, in her pauses, in her tension, in the way she measures every new man against the ghost of your gravity. When another man touches her, her body remembers the cadence of yours. When another man argues, she compares his tone to your silence. When another man offers comfort, she wonders why it feels hollow. Because comfort without authority feels empty. Peace without polarity feels dead. You see, what binds her to you isn't nostalgia. It's contrast memory. The nervous system imprints stronger on emotional extremes than on calm repetition. That's why she doesn't remember the dinners or the dates. She remembers the moment she looked into your eyes and felt simultaneously exposed and protected. That single moment becomes an axis in her emotional timeline. Everything before and after revolves around it. This is not manipulation. This is biology. You didn't hypnotize her. You simply became the mirror she couldn't look away from, because through you, she met her own reflection. The part of herself that longs to surrender, but only to someone she cannot break. Women don't obsess over men they can control. They obsess over the man who mirrors back their chaos without flinching. The man whose calmness exposes their instability. The man whose stillness forces them to feel their own movement. Every time she remembers you, her body replays the old loop, the tension, the release, the tension again. The dopamine hit, the withdrawal. It's not about you as a person anymore. It's about the chemical signature you left behind. And that's why no one else fits, because no one else strikes that same chord in her biology. You didn't become her fantasy. You became her reference point. Every new experience she has will be measured against the depth you reached in her. Even when she runs in circles that orbit your imprint. When she thinks she's moved on, it's only because the loop has gone quiet. But one song, one scent, one word, and the entire system reactivates. The storm returns. And she remembers, not you, but the feeling of being undone in your presence. That's why you must understand your power, because what you awaken, you become responsible for. Not to maintain it, but to carry it with reverence. This is not about control. It's about awareness. Every man radiates energy, but only a few have the gravity to alter a woman's emotional architecture. If you are one of them, move with discipline. Speak with precision. Withdraw with intention. Don't aim to be memorable. Memorable is for the common. Be unforgettable. Memorable men live in minds. Unforgettable men live in nervous systems. They become the pulse behind the pause. The silence behind the noise. The ache beneath the smile. That's what the power imprint is. A haunting without cruelty. A presence that lingers in the absence. You don't need to chase her attention, because her attention already belongs to the echo you left behind. You see, when she feels empty, she doesn't miss you. She misses the version of herself that only existed in your gravity. That's the secret she'll never admit. You didn't just make her desire you. You made her feel herself more deeply. And that's why she'll never forget you. Every time life goes quiet, every time she's safe but bored, every time she feels adored but unseen, your shadow reappears. Not as a ghost, but as a reminder of the man who carried both danger and mercy in the same heartbeat. That is the mark no time can erase. That is the difference between attraction and imprint. Because love can fade. Desire can cool. But the body remembers power. And power, once felt, can never be unfelt. You don't stay in her story because of what you gave her. You stay because of what you awakened in her. That's the art of the power imprint. To touch a woman's soul so deeply that even when she tries to forget you, she ends up remembering herself through you. Part 4, The Obsession Loop. She chases the man who gives her withdrawal. That sentence explains every mystery men spend their lives trying to decode. She doesn't chase affection. She chases the absence of it. The vacuum left after a taste. Because the female nervous system, just like the male, is chemical. Every emotion she feels around you releases something: dopamine, oxytocin, adrenaline. And the body, once it knows that flavor, begins to crave repetition. It wants the next dose. It doesn't care if the dose comes from joy or pain, only that it moves her. You become her stimulus, her trigger, her chemical rhythm. And when you withdraw your presence, your attention, your energy, she doesn't just miss you. She experiences withdrawal. A physiological emptiness, like a silence inside her bones. That is when the mind begins its descent into obsession. It tries to fix the pain by finding the source again. You. This is the loop: stimulation, satisfaction, loss, craving, return. The same loop that drives every addiction known to man. The same loop that drives her back into your orbit, even when her logic screams, don't. At first, she thinks she's just curious. Then, she tells herself she's just reminiscing. Then she finds herself scrolling through your old messages at 2 a.m., listening to voice notes, smelling your scent on a pillow she swore she threw away. The body keeps the truth long after the mind writes lies. Because what she misses isn't you. It's the chemistry her body made when she was near you. She misses her own reaction, her own voltage, her own aliveness. That's why no apology, no reasoning, no closure ever ends obsession. Obsession doesn't live in words. It lives in the nervous system. When you gave her attention, her body felt expansion. When you withdrew, it felt collapse. That oscillation between fullness and emptiness creates a neurological loop stronger than any promise of love. It's the same loop that keeps gamblers pulling levers, waiting for the next unpredictable hit of reward. It's the same loop that makes addicts swear they're done, only to return to the substance that ruins them. In love, that substance is you. But here's what most men never understand: you didn't enslave her by giving more. You enslaved her by giving less than her body expected. By breaking the pattern at the peak of pleasure, by withdrawing right when she thought she could predict you. The unpredictable is the currency of obsession. It turns affection into fixation. It converts emotional attention into dependency. That's why she checks her phone even when she hates herself for doing it. That's why she finds excuses to see you again, to talk, to return something, to get closure. These are not conversations. They are cravings disguised as logic. You became the phantom limb she can't stop touching. Every silence from you is interpreted as a new question she must answer. Did I do something wrong? Has he moved on? Was it ever real? And every question creates motion, a tightening in her chest, a heat in her stomach, a restless energy she cannot shake. That's dopamine in its purest form, a chemical released not by fulfillment, but by anticipation. Her body produces it every time she thinks of you. That's why absence feeds the loop stronger than presence ever could. Men think they can keep women interested through effort, through messages, gestures, constant contact. But effort breeds familiarity. And familiarity is the death of mystery. When you withdraw your energy, you give her imagination space to breathe. And the imagination is always more addictive than reality. It fills the silence with fantasy. And fantasy is the most potent drug of all. Her mind begins to replay the best moments on loop, but it edits them, polishes them, exaggerates them. The warmth of your hand becomes fire. Your silence becomes wisdom. Your distance becomes depth. The addiction grows, not because you're perfect, but because the version she created in her mind is impossible to replace. Every time you retreat, you remind her of that missing feeling. Every time you appear again, calm, contained, detached, you reward her craving just enough to reignite the pattern. You don't chase. You don't beg. You simply exist as scarcity. Scarcity isn't about manipulation. It's about chemistry, about understanding that constant exposure dulls the senses, but selective exposure heightens them. When you show restraint, you give meaning to your presence. When you hold back, you teach her that your attention has weight. She learns to earn it, to crave it, to protect it. You become the emotional currency she measures her worth with. And every withdrawal from you feels like debt. She wants to pay it off, not to win you, but to win herself back. That's how attachment transforms into obsession. The fight to regain internal balance through external pursuit. And here's the paradox: the more she chases, the deeper the imbalance grows. Because every pursuit ends in the same truth: you can't be caught. Not because you're running, but because you're anchored. You are still, grounded, unmoved. And her emotions are waves crashing against a rock that doesn't notice. The harder she hits, the more she feels her own motion. And that motion is mistaken for love. She begins to call it destiny, soul connection, unfinished story. But beneath all of it is the same biological loop, the pursuit of the next emotional high. The tragedy and the beauty are the same. She doesn't know that what she's chasing is not you, but the sensation of losing and finding herself in your gravity. You became her mirror, the one that reflects both her chaos and her calm. She returns to that mirror again and again, not because she needs to see you, but because she needs to remember who she was when she was near you. And that's how obsession sustains itself. It feeds on absence. It feeds on silence. It feeds on the gap between the last memory and the next possibility. You don't have to do anything. You only have to hold your frame. Because the more she tries to fill the silence you left, the louder it becomes. And one day she realizes she can't escape it. You are not just a man anymore. You are an echo. The pattern her body keeps replaying, waiting for resolution that will never come. That's when attraction dies and addiction takes its place. The cycle will keep repeating, stimulus, satisfaction, loss, craving, until she either breaks the loop or you become the law inside it. That is the obsession loop. And every woman who enters it learns the same truth: you can forget a man you loved, but not the man whose absence hurts like withdrawal. Part 5, The Forbidden Formula. Obsession equals mystery times authority times emotional scarcity. That is the forbidden formula. The equation carved into the dark geometry of desire. It does not live in words or tactics. It lives in tension. Every time a woman loses herself to a man she cannot forget, these three forces were at play, always unseen, unspoken, unforgiving. Mystery, authority, scarcity. The trinity that turns attraction into worship, curiosity into craving, desire into dependence. She doesn't know why she thinks of you, why she feels you in her pulse when the world is silent, because the formula doesn't touch her mind. It touches her biology. It speaks in chemical whispers older than language. Mystery is the first gate. The unknown is the oldest drug known to consciousness. What she can predict, she dismisses. What she cannot decode, she studies. Most men crave to be understood. They bleed explanations. They overexpose. They think transparency builds trust. But for women, transparency kills fascination. A woman doesn't fall for what she understands. She falls for what she feels but can't explain. Mystery is not deception. It's depth without disclosure. It's presence without performance. It's the pause that makes her imagination kneel. When you become slightly out of reach, when your silence holds more weight than another man's words, she begins to imagine. And imagination is stronger than reality. She starts writing your story inside her own. She fills the blanks with fantasy. And that fantasy binds her more than truth ever could. But mystery alone is not enough. It needs a structure to orbit around. That structure is authority. Authority is not dominance through volume. It's calmness that does not need proof. It's when your energy remains anchored while the world, and her emotions, fluctuate around you. Every woman is drawn to the man whose emotional climate does not change with her moods, because stability is power, and power is addictive. You lead without insisting. You decide without explaining. You listen without being swayed. That stillness, that composure, that command of tone, it becomes a gravitational field around you. She feels safe and threatened at the same time. Safe because she senses order. Threatened because she knows she cannot manipulate it. That's authority. Not the power that crushes, but the power that contains. Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that silences a room without a word. Combine that with mystery, and her psyche enters a paradox. She trusts what she can't understand and desires what she can't control. But the final element, the one that seals the loop, is emotional scarcity. Men fear scarcity because they fear loss. Women crave scarcity because it creates value. Every time you withhold attention, every time you let silence breathe, you teach her nervous system that your energy is rare. And rarity awakens reverence. You don't withhold to punish. You withhold to define. Because value doesn't scream. It's felt in absence. She starts thinking about you not because you're always there, but because you're not. When you give less than she expects, she begins to supply what's missing. She invests emotionally to fill the gap. And the more she invests, the more she binds. That's the hidden economy of desire: whoever invests more depends more. Scarcity converts you from an option into an obsession. Your silence becomes a mirror where she meets herself. Your absence becomes an ache she mistakes for love. Every time she reaches out and you don't respond immediately, her brain floods with dopamine and cortisol, a storm of chemicals designed to make her chase resolution. She's not chasing you. She's chasing the relief that only you can now provide. Mystery keeps her intrigued. Authority keeps her grounded. Scarcity keeps her chasing. Together, they create the perfect storm, a biological loop that traps both emotion and ego. She starts to dream about you for no reason. She starts to hear your voice in her silence. She starts to compare every man she meets to the one who never needed her attention to feel powerful. The formula is not romantic. It's mechanical. It operates beneath language, in the reptilian architecture of the brain where fear, longing, and reward blur together. Every time you enter a room, she feels the polarity, the tension between wanting to approach and wanting to protect herself. That tension is the axis of desire. And when you master it, you master the unspoken law that governs attraction itself. You see, obsession isn't an emotion, it's an equation. When mystery multiplies with authority and scarcity filters both, the result is a mind that cannot let go. She tells herself stories to justify the craving. She calls it chemistry, destiny, trauma bonding. But those are just names for one truth: you reached the layer beneath language, the layer where instinct worships weight. You became the center of her emotional gravity. And every orbit, every thought, every heartbeat returns to you. She doesn't understand why she checks her phone every morning. Why she hears a song and thinks of you. Why in a room full of faces, her eyes still search for the one that already left. Because the formula doesn't act on her mind. It acts on her nervous system. You became her dopamine pattern, her emotional reference, her spiritual addiction. And the cruel truth, she doesn't even need to see you again to feel your weight. Once the formula is activated, you live in her silence, in her pauses, in her breath between sentences. You don't chase love. You engineer obsession. Not through manipulation, but through mastery of your own energy. Mystery, authority, scarcity. These are not tricks. They are laws. The deeper architecture of polarity itself. But understand this, when you wield this power without consciousness, it will consume you too. Because every time you create dependency, you feed the same loop inside yourself. And if you confuse reverence with control, the formula reverses. You become the addict. Addicted to being needed, addicted to being worshipped, addicted to the illusion of power. That's why it's called forbidden, not because it's evil, but because it tempts the man who uses it to believe he is a god. The truth is simpler, darker, and holier: you are not meant to enslave her. You are meant to understand the gravity of your presence. To know that silence can be as powerful as speech, that withdrawal can be as loud as pursuit, to know that obsession is not created by force, but by the calm certainty of a man who does not need to be chased. Mystery feeds her curiosity. Authority calms her chaos. Scarcity fuels her devotion. Together they write your name in her nervous system. Not as a memory, but as a law. And when that law is written, she doesn't fall in love. She falls under influence. That is the forbidden formula. The one whispered through centuries. The one every seduction, every religion, every myth has always hidden behind metaphor. Because once you master it, you stop asking for affection. You become the gravity that affection orbits around. Obsession isn't built through words or gifts. It's built through silence that has weight, through presence that calms her storms, through absence that burns her mind. You don't ask her to stay. You become the gravity her chaos can't escape. That is the final law. The point where seduction ends and sovereignty begins. Because obsession was never about winning her. It was about mastering yourself. Every moment you refused to react, every silence you held, every boundary you didn't explain, you weren't training her. You were training your own power. You see, the world told you that love is shown through effort, through chasing, through convincing, through proving. But effort is noise. And women do not fall for noise. They fall for weight. The kind of weight that bends a room without speaking. That is what she feels when she looks at you and can't breathe. Not because you intimidate her, but because in that stillness, she feels her illusions dying. All her performances, her masks, her defenses, they dissolve under the gaze of a man who needs nothing. It is not dominance. It is alignment. A man who has mastered his inner world creates order in everything around him. And women, in their depths, are drawn to order, because order is safety. Even when they rebel against it, they orbit it. You are not the storm. You are the axis around which the storm learns to dance. You are not chasing validation. You are radiating gravity. And gravity does not chase what it pulls. Understand this: when she's near you, she feels her chaos meeting resistance. When you withdraw, she feels the absence of that resistance. Both sensations tie her deeper into your field. Her mind calls it love. Her biology calls it survival. That's why she keeps coming back. Not because you're flawless, but because your presence restores equilibrium. You became the only environment where her emotions make sense. Every other man gives her stimulation. You give her structure. And structure is more addictive than pleasure. That is what the world never told you. The true masculine power is not in how loudly you speak, but in how little you need to. When your silence has gravity, your absence becomes presence. She'll feel it in the stillness after an argument, in the unreturned text, in the space where you used to be. It will feel like something missing from the air itself. That's the moment the lesson is complete. Not the moment she says she loves you, but the moment she realizes she cannot feel balanced without you. And that realization burns. It dismantles her sense of control. But it also sets her free, because through you, she encounters the truth she's always denied. That surrender, when met by strength, is not weakness. It's peace. That's the alchemy of obsession. It begins in imbalance, matures in resistance, and completes in recognition. You are not the man who gives her what she wants. You are the man who reminds her of what she is, a creature of emotion, rhythm, and gravity. And the more she fights that truth, the deeper she falls under it. Don't mistake this for control. Control is fragile. Gravity is eternal. Control must be maintained. Gravity simply is. That's why men who chase love lose it. And men who embody gravity draw it. You don't demand respect. You become the structure that makes disrespect impossible. You don't force devotion. You become the law her emotions obey. When she senses that your world will not collapse without her, something inside her softens. She surrenders, not to you, but to the balance your presence creates within her. You become the reference point she measures every feeling, every man, every moment against. And one day, without understanding why, she realizes she no longer wants freedom. She wants orbit. Because in orbit, she feels both motion and meaning. Because your stillness gives her chaos direction. Because your silence gives her noise purpose. That is not romance. That is resonance, the eternal dance of polarity. But beware, every law has a cost. The moment you use this power to dominate, you fracture it. Because the true secret of the forbidden formula is that it consumes any man who uses it for ego. If you start needing her addiction to feel powerful, you've already lost sovereignty. You've become the addict. Remember, you are not the puppet master. You are the mirror. You do not control her, you reveal her. When she bows to her own longing reflected through you. When she stays because her soul recognizes the structure of truth. You simply hold the space. The rest is gravity. And gravity doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't ask to be loved. It simply pulls. That's why obsession lasts long after attraction dies. It's not built from fantasy. It's built from physics. The physics of emotion. The tension between motion and stillness. Between her chaos and your calm. Love fades. Obsession remains. Not because it's darker, but because it's deeper. Because it reaches the parts of her that logic can't touch. It lives where her language ends. Where her instincts begin. You are not the man she wants. You are the man her biology kneels to, the silent law written in her nervous system. The axis that her emotions return to when the world overwhelms her. That is why she can't let go. Not because you possess her, but because she recognizes the order in your presence. You don't own her heart. You organize it. Don't try to own her, become the law her emotions obey. Because at the end, all desire is gravity. And the rare man who becomes gravity never needs to chase anything again. The kings of the past didn't conquer with armies. They conquered with certainty. Their calmness was command. Their silence was strategy. Their presence was empire. You were never meant to be louder than the world. You were meant to be heavier, to stand so still that everything begins to revolve around you. That is the final transformation, from chasing affection to embodying attraction itself. From seeking control to becoming the axis of order. Love is fragile. Obsession is eternal. But the highest form of both is not power over her. It's mastery over yourself. That is the end of the forbidden formula and the beginning of something greater, the gravity mechanism. The deeper law that makes her respect your dominance forever.